Today on Seculo, a fight breaks out in the U.S. Senate over Trump nomination.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Seculo. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Jordan Seculo.
All right, folks, welcome to Seculo. We are taking your calls too, 1-800-684-3110. Those nomination battles, remember, they begin even before the president is sworn in, and they can begin, early as next week. And the public part of these confirmation hearings begin after a candidate has accepted of course, been nominated by the president, filled out the proper paperwork, and then they can schedule a confirmation in the hearing. And sometimes, these are very quick, even with big positions, depending on the relationship the person has with senators. So with like Senator Marco Rubio in his situation for Secretary of State, he has a long record with those senators on both sides of the aisle. The Democrats might not agree with him on a lot of his stances, but at the same time, they're not going to have enough votes to defeat him. So it's going to be and I don't think it'll be a particularly nasty hearing either. But if you move to our colleague Tulsi Gabbard, who is still a colleague with us here at the American Center for Law and Justice, this is who they have decided to try to take down immediately. And we need to stand up for Tulsi. You think about this for the ACLJ, to have someone from our team nominated to be part of the president's cabinet, but in a position, not just the president's cabinet, but a position that we know how important it is, because we have the former acting director of national intelligence on our team as well, Rick Grenell, who got in there to make sure that the government and really the security state inside the government, the intel state, wasn't over classifying information that the American people should know. And then instead they started just relying on, let's put classification on everything, and then the public and the media, they'll have to fight us out and likely will win because we're the intelligence agency. So it's a huge job, not one, because it keeps the intelligence community in check. Two, because we've seen an act of Islamic terrorism. We have seen this event, what happened in Las Vegas. And you've got the inaugural other big events coming up through the year. President Trump about to become the next president again, and those threats that come in from countries that don't like the tough decision making. You think about President Trump has already had a prime minister resign because of their weakness in the face of his policies. I'm talking about our neighbor to the north. But we have got to get Tulsi Gabbard confirmed. And the Democrats are coming up with the most ridiculous reasons on the Intel Committee not to let her even go into the hearing and start the hearing, where they can ask her as many tough questions as they want. They're saying they haven't gotten enough info from the FBI. This is someone who is active duty in the military. She has a top security clearance. She has had that and she's gotten higher security clearances as she's been in the military for over 20 years. So it's not like someone who has never had a security clearance got nominated to this position and the FBI is starting at zero. They're starting at probably 98% of what they need, and maybe a little bit more tied to this specific position so that they can get that report to the U.S. Senate. But the senators say, well, that's not enough. And so we've got two issues we've got to work on here to make sure Tulsi gets, one, her opportunity to appear before the committee and then to get a vote on the floor of the U.S. Senate. But two is to make sure the FBI is not withholding documents and research and information they already have because they happen to dislike her policies and her views on how the intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies have been run, which is very common, in our world. So we've got a petition up, Logan, at aclj.org. We need to help Tulsi Gabbard out. We need our listeners to help, our viewers to help, because this, again, to have a colleague from the ACLJ be a cabinet member, that is an amazing kind of next story for the ACLJ. Let's make sure it happens.
Absolutely. So right now, I encourage you to go to aclj.org/sign. Take action by signing our petition. Again, at aclj.org/sign. We've mobilized our government affairs office on Capitol Hill to press for her confirmation. Again, this is for our colleague, our friend, Tulsi Gabbard. Again, go to aclj.org/sign. Do that today. Phone lines are open for your calls and questions as well. 1-800-684-3110. We'll be right back.
Tulsi Gabbard's up for one of the most coveted cabinet positions in President-elect Trump's administration, Director of National Intelligence.
We can't allow our country to be destroyed by politicians who will put their own power ahead of the interests of the American people.
She would be privy to the nation's most closely guarded secrets, oversee 18 intelligence agencies, and be the president's main advisor on intelligence matters.
Democrats have a bullseye on Gabbard's back. Senator Tammy Duckworth accused her of being compromised, and Senator Elizabeth Warren called her, quote, a Russian asset.
I think it's really interesting that anybody that has a different political view now is being cast as a Russian asset. It's totally ridiculous. Tulsi Gabbard has served in our military.
I would hope that we have elected leaders who have heard the American people in this election, even if it didn't turn out the way that they wanted, and recognize that this is our opportunity to come together as a country and put the American people first.
Gabbard is somebody that we need to take a strong role in cleaning up the intelligence community. There's just been 50 years since the last time we had a proper house cleaning of the intelligence community. Since then, we have had the intelligence community involved in creating a censorship industrial complex, involved in creating a Russia collusion hoax around a sitting president. You know, we've had the intelligence community involved in a disinformation campaign around the Hunter Biden laptop, involved both the FBI and CIA.
There's going to be resistance to change from the swamp in Washington. I think that's kind of the point. The American people are saying, hey, stop looking at yourselves, stop focusing on your own power, your own position, your own bank accounts. How about we have leaders in Washington who are actually looking out for the American people? And on every issue across the board, that's really what it comes down to with what President Trump is trying to accomplish is we have to make sure that our government puts the interests of the American people first.
All right, welcome back to Secular. We are taking your phone calls to 1-800-684-3110. You know, the next war you get into here, and it's not just watching what the Biden administration is doing, these final days there in office, the executive orders, the money they are throwing around, the potential to even, you know, start other foreign wars because, again, you've got basically advisors running a presidency, and we see that in the mainstream media now. So it's a very dangerous time already, always is in a transition. That the Democrats will make it as difficult as possible, and the Biden team will make it as difficult as possible for the Trump team to get on the ground running. And the Democrats in the Senate want to do the same thing. They want to keep you from actually having control of the federal government, of the executive agencies, as long as possible, so that bureaucrats and holdovers are in charge, which are their friends who will not implement or with any speed the policies of the President of the United States. So it is key to get your cabinet confirmed, and as we've said, to get your deputies confirmed so those people are not being sent into a 10,000-person agency with not a single person they can truly trust and work with and know is on their same team as an American. That's how bad it is inside that bureaucracy. They have to assume everybody they're working with in the bureaucracy will try and undermine them or, you know, is recording what they're saying and is going to try to take it out of context, basically see who they can remove before they've even gotten started. They did that with the first Trump team that went in there with the Russia story. We have no idea what they're going to come up with next. But right now, they've actually taken it to another level, which is not moving forward with some of the key hearings for nominees on the cabinet, like Director of National Intelligence for Tulsi Gabbard. She is a colleague of ours at the American Center for Law and Justice and on the Secular broadcast. She remains one today, and we are proud to have worked with her. Hopefully, we'll be able to work with her again in the future, while and assist whatever we can while she's DNI, but even further into her career. But she's got to get a hearing. And Will, the Democrats' excuses for not having a hearing is absurd, especially when you have a country that has faced a new kind of terrorism, is kind of come back, Islamic terrorism. Is it something we can quickly put, nip in the bud? The border issues. We know that the cartels are working with terrorist organizations. We know that there are bad actors. And we also know these intelligence agencies haven't been focusing on the right people. They've been focusing on American citizens, speech and organizing instead of the bad guys. And that's why we have these, unprepared security at large events.
Jordan, this is the problem. This is the fight that the U.S. Senate on the Democrat side has decided they want to pick at this dangerous, pivotal time in American history. Because they're already letting forward these nominations, these hearings to begin on Attorney General Pam Bondi would be Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Pete Hegseth is scheduled to have his hearing on Tuesday. Doug Burgum also on Tuesday. That'd be the Department of the Interior. Lee Zeldin is scheduled for Thursday for EPA. And Tom Cotton, who's the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, wants to hold both John Ratcliffe for the CIA director position and Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, their hearings early next week. His goal is to get these hearings started so that we can start getting to votes on January 20th when President Trump is sworn in. But the Democrats have picked their fight. They've drawn their line in the sand. They're going after Tulsi Gabbard. Mark Warner, who's the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, is saying that Tulsi Gabbard hasn't provided the enough material, the required vetting material for them to go forward with this. So the Democrats are forcing a delay in this hearing, forcing a delay for the position of Director of National Intelligence. And he's trying to make it seem as though because she hasn't provided these materials that she's somehow obstructing this process. But in reality, her FBI background check, the work for that was done and completed and sent to the FBI last week. That should also be expedited because she is someone who holds that high security clearance. Therefore, they already have much of this material. They don't have to start from zero and work their way up in this background check. But then also, they're saying she didn't provide a questionnaire. She provided the first questionnaire already, and they've given her a deadline of today to provide the second one, which she said she'll comply with. And then the final thing is the ethics statement that they want signed. Many of these nominees, because of the snow and the offices being closed in D.C., haven't been able to receive them yet because people haven't been in the office. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have it. So they're trying to play this game and pick this fight and make it be public that Tulsi Gabbard isn't playing along. She's not being helpful. She's obstructing this process. We have to delay her hearing. But in reality, she is. She's doing the things that need to be done to go before the Senate. And I think you should hear from Elizabeth Warren because she's been an outspoken critic on many of the nominees, but she gets pretty nasty, uses the old rhetoric on Tulsi Gabbard. And this was on CNN yesterday. Let's play bite one.
Why is Donald Trump doing this? And I think the answer is, let's have a big distraction and several more questions so we don't spend more time on Pete Hegseth, the nominee to be the head of the Department of Defense. So we don't spend more time on Tulsi Gabbard, who has been in the pocket of Putin and is not someone who should be trusted with our secrets, so that we don't spend more time on Robert Kennedy's views on vaccines. In other words, we have a job in front of us right now, and that is advise and consent on the nominees who are there to run our government.
Okay. First of all, Tulsi Gabbard already has top secret security level clearance. She might need another level 1 or 2 up, but there's not much higher that she can get, and she's maintained that for 2 decades, including this time period that they think she was, because of meeting with foreign leaders, somehow violating what would be then they would take your security clearance away if they thought you were doing something wrong. In fact, I just don't think we know the full story there because it's probably connected to a lot of different background things. And Tulsi's been involved in a lot of operations throughout Africa in the past couple of years that you don't talk about much. That's all you kind of hear about. And you see that in her bio. She talks about that. So again, some of this will have to be done, as we said, like behind closed doors. But the idea here that she is some unknown to the intelligence world, it's the exact opposite, Will. The FBI and everyone who's been through it says this is the person who has the easiest time to get their clearance through because they already have a very active high-level clearance from the U.S. military. With all the events that have occurred, has never once tried to revoke or question her security clearance. I mean, she's walking in with a higher-level security clearance as a non-politician, because she left Congress, than someone like Marco Rubio, who's coming in because he was elected as a U.S. senator. That's what empowered him to get the information.
That's right.
Elected officials don't have to get clearances from the executive agencies. It's like the president. You don't have to clear them. But she's already got it from those agencies, and they're acting like they can't let her see this information. It's a sideshow to try to, so that people won't pay attention to other big issues. The truth is, if we can't get the Director of National Intelligence confirmed, and you can't get your DOD Secretary confirmed, and you can't do 4 of these at once because it's the same, all different committees at this level. This is what the Democrats' last attempt to do, is to really prevent the Trump administration from actually beginning. Because the president can do a lot by executive order, and he can do a lot with his team, but what he can't do is makes it very difficult, is to really implement big policy changes without the personnel in place to do it. And the bureaucrat holdovers, not only will they not do the work, they disagree with it. So you've got to get your people in place. You have to have a cabinet to govern the U.S. government right now. It's so huge that without a cabinet, I mean, it's a government that's run amok.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a call because some people have been asking this question online as well. Sally's calling in Arizona on line 1. You're on the air.
Hi. Yes, I wanted to find out, actually, what is the best way for us out here to support Tulsi Gabbard in her nomination?
So I think there's 2 things to do. One is we have our petition at aclj.org. So as someone who, an organization that Tulsi's been a part of and on our team, I think it speaks a lot to even Republican U.S. senators who don't know Tulsi as well because maybe they are not always aligned with the MAGA movement, but they do know the work of the ACLJ, which is longer than that movement, and worked with us on lots of issues. So making sure you sign our petition so that we've got a lot of names there and thousands of people that know, hey, I'm an ACLJ supporter. Tulsi worked with the ACLJ. I want you to be reminded of that. So make sure when you are taking this vote or helping get this vote to the committee and then out to the floor of the U.S. Senate, that you know you're supporting someone that the ACLJ works with directly. And I think that's important. Now, when she gets the actual hearing date, we'll want you to call strategically U.S. senators and ultimately on the floor of the U.S. Senate, both of your U.S. senators to vote yes. But right now, share the information, get more people on our petition, Logan. That's what we got to do. We've got a specific petition for Tulsi, so they can sign it and then at no cost, share it with your friends and family online. It's easier to do that now on Facebook.
Yeah, it's very easy.
So do that, and let's get a lot of signatures there. She needs the support.
Do it right now. aclj.org/sign. It'll take you directly there. SIGN sign. Sign for Tulsi and we need a supporter. We'll be right back with more.
This new year starting in tragedy. At least 15 dead and dozens injured after police say a man intentionally plowed his car into a crowd in the busy French Quarter of New Orleans on Bourbon Street.
Biden's weak national security apparatus led to 2 deadly terrorist attacks on New Year's Day.
We knew with the Biden administration, if you just gave it time, full term now, that you would see these returns happen.
Biden's FBI has been wrong-headedly focused on prosecuting Trump and placing spies in supposed radical traditionalist Christian churches.
We have to get the FBI and all of our other intel agencies thinking a different way, which is that it's not homegrown extremist white groups that are the #1 threat. I do not want to continue to see a rise of politically connected Islamic terror again in the United States of America, which means we have got to get the president's team confirmed.
It is vitally important that the Senate quickly confirm President Trump's national security team, including our very own colleague, Tulsi Gabbard, as DNI. We're in court battling FOIA lawsuits against the DOD, DOJ, FBI, and NSA over misplaced priorities that endanger America. Our Government Affairs Office is mobilizing on Capitol Hill, but we must act quickly. Biden's deep state will be running all these agencies long after President Trump takes office, unless we get his national security team confirmed quickly. Take urgent action with us and join our demand letter to the Senate to quickly confirm Trump's national security team. The safety and security of our constitutional republic depend on it.
Folks, welcome back to Secchio. There are times, when good friends of ours who we have on the broadcast or they have on our broadcast or even working together behind the scenes reach out with a personal a story, and they're just asking for prayer. And when David Brody did this, just yesterday, it sent a tweet, a message to me just via phone and messenger, just a text, and it's about what had happened with a diagnosis of his 22-year-old daughter. I said, not only can we share this with the ACLJ team and our social media, but I want to share it with our entire audience and not talk politics and not talk the usual issues, but again, go right to David, who I love. David, again, and everybody knows David Brody from CBN News, being the chief political analyst for CBN and the 700 Club, Meet the Press, CNN, Just the News. Has done so much work really studying the conservative movement, following and being a part of the conservative movement. But David, this story you found out about your daughter and her diagnosis on Christmas Eve, which is just as heartbreaking, tell people about.
Yeah, not the news you want to get on Christmas Eve, Jordan. Thanks for having me on, by the way, and really appreciate everything you guys are doing at ACLJ. Boy, I tell you what, America wouldn't be where it's at without you. Imagine where America would be without you guys. So let's just start there. My daughter has stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. We found out on Christmas Eve. We didn't know it was stage 3 at the time. Now we do. She's going to start chemotherapy at the end of January 27th, actually, to be exact. There's some fertility issues involved here potentially. So there's just a host of things that we're dealing with as a family. She is a trooper. She's a warrior. She's great. She's 22 years old. There she is. That was a few years ago, actually, when she was about 20. She graduated from University of Maryland at the age of 20. She did college in 2 years. So that's pretty impressive. She works over at Fox News. She's got a world of potential ahead of her. But yeah, so for our family, it's been a whirlwind for sure. And, sometimes I tell you what, as a parent, definitely your worst nightmare as it relates to that. But then again, we know we serve a God of miracles. Most importantly, we have a God that we can trust. I'm just clinging to Proverbs 3, verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, because we want to lean on our own understanding. But right now, it's hard to understand exactly what she's going through and what we're about to go through as a family, but she'll get through it, and we're gonna be there for her.
Yeah, and you can support the family. I know we've shared the link. We'll put it in the chat now. We've also got it online. The best way to do that, guys, is again you can go directly to the page?
Yeah, directly to givesendgo.com/support-Elena. So we'll put Elina.
Yeah, I'll tell our social team who's watching right now, if you're on YouTube or you're on Rumble, let's get that pinned or somewhere in the comments so it's easy for people to go to and help support. So again, that's at givesendgo.com/support-Elina, ELINA. And again, we'll get that up in the comments as well.
And you mentioned her starting her career at Fox News, finishing school early at 20 years old, just getting started. How can people first pray for her, and then more broadly, because we got a lot of prayer warriors listening into this broadcast right now who didn't know this was about to happen on the show. Probably were expecting a little more politics right now, but know you, know the family. How can they pray for her specifically, and how can they pray for your family? Because I'm sure there's prayer warriors all over the country that are ready to pray for your daughter right now.
Well, boy, that's just a great question. A couple of things. For her specifically, I would just say for her, just peace of mind going through this. It's one thing to get diagnosed with cancer, which was hard enough. It'll be quite another thing when the chemo starts. She'll lose her hair and everything else that comes along with that. And so to see a 22-year-old like that, I think for her specifically, definitely peace of mind, and really just a spiritual boost for her. She's a believer, and yet at the same time, when we go through something like that, we just need prayers for her to just see all of the good, and she already sees it, but just all of the good that can come from this, and that's where her attitude is now. So that's great. But when the troubled times continue to hit through chemo, she's going to really need that for sure, especially when, a young young female losing their hair. That's hard. But she's seen amazing support. So I would say that for our family, I just clarity and just a physical and mental endurance, I guess. And when I say clarity, I mean specifically about keeping our eye on the ball and what to do and do things every single day to march the ball down the field and be systematic about it to make sure that we're not missing anything and her getting the best possible care.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, David, today. I know it's a tough time for you and your family, but I'm glad we're able to hopefully spread the word and share. Again, it is at givesendgo.com/support-Alina, ELINA. And David's been on this show so many times, countless times, and always in touch. So we're just, in these types of situations, I know, like Jordan said, you may tune into a show thinking you're just going to get what's latest in the news and politics, but with the ACLJ and with our faith background and everything, there are moments where we can come together and help our friends and help our colleagues. So David, it's always good to hear from you, even in these kind of situations where hopefully our team and our ACLJ supporters and champions can come together to support your family.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I would just say this, that there's always that silver lining, and more specifically, spiritually. My wife started a wonderful blessings book, and we're 3 weeks into this, and she's already on the 8th page of blessings that have come from this. So, kind of tracking, not to make the comparison to America necessarily, but, sometimes you have to go one step back to go 2 steps forward. And we've seen that in America, where we were just like, what is going on with Biden? What is going on with everything going on? But what's going to come from that? What's the ... in all of this? And we're excited. We're excited to see what that is. I know that sounds weird to say we're excited, but we are. And in the meantime, maybe it's not so exciting right this moment, but give us some time. More importantly, give God that time to work, because he'll work. And that blessings book is going to be really reassuring through all of this. And then afterwards, to see all of the blessings that come from it, we're counting on that. There's a CBN coworker that always says, thank you in advance, Lord, for what you're going to do. And we believe that promise.
David, keep us updated. We'll encourage people to go to that link, support the family as you can. If you can financially, do that. If you're, again, those prayer warriors, it doesn't cost a thing. And as David said, to pray for the family, to pray for Elena specifically as well. And again, David, keep us updated, and I wanted just our entire community to know that, all of us that were on these shows, and that there were real people with real families going through sometimes very tough things, and just appreciate you telling the story too, to be on with us as a dad going through it. So thank you, David. And Logan, this is, again, like you said, we're all, talk politics and public policy and law, and that's usually for Texting with David. What you would assume the text is going to be about when you see it, a question like
right.
that. But this was, this is when it kind of punches you in the gut.
Yeah, this is where it gets real. And unfortunately, the way that we run this show and the way that we run the organization, we're able to do this. We're able to come on. No one's telling us what to put on and what not. Thankfully, that's a lot of you ACLJ supporters who allow us to do that. The show is not owned or operated by big corporate sponsors or by anyone other than us. We can't do that without your support. So, of course, today, we encourage you always to support the work of the ACLJ, but right now, if you can, go to givesendgo.com/support-Alina. Do that, and that really mean a lot, and let them know that you're a listener and you're a supporter here at the ACLJ as well. We'll be right back. Second half hour of Seculo coming up. We'll hop back into the news.
Some people think champions are bored, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, then it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today.
Keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Seculo. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, folks, welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your phone calls too, 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110 to take you back to the situation involving Tulsi Gabbard and moving forward her nomination. There are two scheduled confirmation hearings that are about to begin at the committee level. Will, that's is it DOD is go? DOD
so
is moving.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is scheduled for Tuesday, so the 14th. We have Pam Bondi for Attorney General. She will be on. It looks like they're going to take a couple days with her, both Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Doug Burgum for Secretary of Interior, scheduled for Tuesday as well. And Lee Zeldin for Environmental Protection Agency, which I'm certain the questions asked of him will be completely different than they were probably planned a week ago with everything that's going on in California. But he will be sitting before that committee, the Environmental Work Committee, on Thursday. So we've got that. But Tom Cotton, the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, really wants to have Tulsi and John Ratcliffe, who is nominated for CIA, next week. He thinks it's very important. It's a time when America has just seen an ISIS terror attack on New Year's Day in New Orleans. They also, that attacker had chemicals that he made his IEDs with, which thankfully did not go off. But he had remote detonation devices. He had the chemicals. When they went into his apartment, they found the plans, the way they were stored. And this was a component for an IED that has never been used in America or even Europe. This is strictly a form of explosive that they have used in the Middle East with these IEDs. So there's a lot of questions.
About how connected he was to
How
actual
connected?
ISIS.
Where did he come up with the concept to use this kind? If he was just scouring the internet for information on making explosives, he specifically chose this. I think that's why you need the DNI and CIA director that President Trump has picked in there as soon as possible, because we don't trust the administration now to get to the bottom of it, but we really need the team to get to the bottom of it and ensure that these future attacks don't happen, especially if he was more connected than they're saying. They keep saying 100% inspired by ISIS, which is fine for them to say. But what we really need to know, especially with this evidence, was he directed by ISIS. And if he was directed by ISIS, or at least the materials that ISIS is putting out is so widely available that other inspired by are effectively directed by, how many more of those are there?
Magazine was? Remember that magazine they
Right.
put out?
It was, I
online?
think it was called Inspire or something to that effect.
Information like that in the back, like how to build explosive devices that, again, like Will said, would not be the way and the chemicals that you would necessarily, how you'd set it up in any kind of U.S. training, like military training or anything like that. That it has to be coming from some foreign source.
They also said he was using ChatGPT and having conversations with that to plan his attack. So you know that that's one of the
data there.
There definitely is data, but one of the latest uses of AI to help coordinate how he was going to do this.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. That was actually the one in Las Vegas. Excuse me.
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, I just think that the American people at this point, they want these agencies to be run by people that they trust. It's again, they're not always going to be perfect to stop these acts, but you do want the people in place who know what their job is and they know the culture they need to change. A lot of these agencies, that's the issue, is the culture within the agencies, so that the best people and probably a lot of the great people that work inside these intelligence agencies are being rewarded, are able to do their job without fear of being fired because of political correctness, and just again can focus their time on getting the bad guys before they hurt Americans and tracking that. So you want to have tough congressional hearings in the U.S. Senate? Have tough hearings. Let the American people see it. But it's like they're afraid to have the hearing with Tulsi Gabbard. And I think that's because so many Americans, including a lot of independent Americans, support where she is on issues. So even more so than maybe some of these Republican, more long-term Republican nominees. So at aclj.org, we want you to sign that petition to stand with Tulsi. Let's make sure she gets on the calendar and gets her hearing scheduled, and then a vote on the floor of the Senate and confirmation. Do it at aclj.org.
The deadly apocalyptic scene, wildfires tearing through Los Angeles. They now fear thousands of homes destroyed here, at least 5 people dead. Authorities saying there are many, quote, significant injuries. This evening across Los Angeles, there are now 6 wildfires. The Palisades Fire, the Eaton Fire, the Hearst Fire, the Sunset Fire, the Lydia Fire, and the Woodley Fire.
The Palisades Fire grows to over 17,000 acres, becoming the most destructive wildfire in LA history.
Firefighters are facing wind gusts up to 100 miles per hour. The U.S. Navy, we've learned, has just dispatched 10 water-dropping helicopters to help try and beat back the flames.
Tonight, thousands in the region are under evacuation orders, filling shelters. Schools are closed, while power is out for 1.5 million Southern Californians.
As dawn broke in Pacific Palisades, we found a scene that can only be described as apocalyptic. The once vibrant village off iconic Sunset Boulevard had stood like this for decades. Oh my God. Until now.
We just arrived here in what is left of downtown Pacific Palisades, and I am overwhelmed by the scale of loss. Many people are going to return to homes that were lost, and even more important, their community completely gone.
On the streets below the hills, evacuation orders stretched south to the famous Hollywood Boulevard and its Walk of Fame, where spectators gathered to watch the blaze and traffic bottlenecked with residents trying to escape. And on the other side of the hills, Studio City at one point looked to be the next part of a town under serious threat, with flames engulfing homes and acres of brush. An all-out assault by crews dropping water from helicopters eventually gave them the upper hand, but some abandoned homes could not be saved.
All right, welcome back to Secular. We are taking your phone calls too, 1-800-684-3110. Another issue we want to talk about, because we have a lot of listeners in California, in Southern California. Really, one of our strongest support bases in the country, Logan, is Southern California.
Yeah,
and
that always sounds
we
weird,
also have
but-
members of our team, Rick Grinnell, who are in Southern California right now, and my wife's family all live in Southern California, and she's spent most of her life there. Has never dealt with the fires, dealt with the smoke, has never had it this close to home, and this time it is that close to home. And Rick is joining us now. Rick, just first, again, I know you're in one of those communities where my father-in-law lives, and it's one that usually has not been as affected as much by these fires. They've gotten close, but it's usually not as affected, and they're right on the line right now about how long they'll be able to stay. I mean, the pictures that they are sending from just their cell phones, it's just shocking.
Well, I have to say, the range of emotions that we're going through here in Southern California are quite wide. We've gone from panic, worry, to anger. It's ongoing. I'm in Manhattan Beach. We're safe. But they are, not able to contain these fires, and they're evacuating people in Santa Monica. So this is, a concern for us. This is just a couple beaches away. And now we're watching as the Hollywood Hills are, literally starting to catch fire, massive fires in Studio City. This is no longer just the west side, the beach side. This has now gone inland, and there's no hope right now. This is 0% contained, and we have fundamental problems in terms of, it is Southern California. We are a dry place, but the reality is in 2014. The residents of California voted for a multi-billion-dollar bond measure, statewide bond measure, and we voted to create more water holding mechanisms. As it is right now, the environmentalists who control the ruling party of the Democratic Party in in control of Sacramento, completely in control of Los Angeles. They do not allow us to capture rainwater. America has watched as Southern California has had mudslides and massive rain last year. None of that was captured because we have a system, a far left belief within our political establishment that we shouldn't capture rainwater. It's not a good idea. When you combine that in an area that is drought driven, and the fact that we don't do basic forestry, we don't clear brush, we don't take away trees, we literally allow dead trees to fall on the ground, stay there, and become timber in a drought-prone area. This is just fundamentally not common sense, and it's now all coming back at a terrible time with massive winds and a lack of rain, and they don't know how to stop it. We have politicians who literally are applying for grants back in Washington, D.C. as a solution, and we need help. We need help. This is not a situation where it's just the rich people who are being affected. This is massive, and this is middle class, and this is America.
Sure, Rick. Yeah, I mean, if you go a mile in any direction in LA, you're going to be in very different worlds in terms of economic growth or how people are doing financially. Now, there's been a lot of pushback over what people are saying is the politicization of these fires as they are ongoing. It's happening. It's heartbreaking. But I kind of wanted your thoughts because you talked about that, how you do feel like this is a failure in leadership, and that this is really not politicizing it. This is really just putting a light on it.
Yeah, look, come on. The politicians in California are completely coming from the Democratic Party that controlled this place for a very long time. The largest newspaper in California, the LA Times, is so far left woke. Do you know that for days on end, they did not even report that the mayor was in Africa? The largest newspaper in the state, the Los Angeles Times, did not report that our mayor was in Africa while this whole thing was unfolding. So when you combine the fact that the media in California are so far left, they protect the ruling class, of course these people are going to be jumpy and nervous that the public is finding out about all of their bad policies. Of course they're going to say now is not the time. I just watched the press conference with Karen Bass, who literally said there'll be plenty of time to look back and figure out what went wrong. We know what went wrong, and she is going to have to resign. And let me promise you this. We are going to lead the revolt to get rid of her. You don't get to be this much of a failure and not face the consequences. I don't care how many people tell us it's inappropriate timing. We are suffering. People are panicking. The air quality is absolutely horrific. People who even remotely have breathing issues are having to leave because they are just getting suffocated. And by the way, we don't know when this is going to improve, and the fires around us are 0% containment. People need to understand this is not just a news story. This is a crisis in the largest county in America. Los Angeles County is the largest county in America. Rick, and our leaders are completely rudderless. They don't know what to do.
Rick, you shared on Twitter, and I want people to understand the magnitude of this, a video clip from outside your home. And while you say you're safe now, but the proximity of which that fire is to even where you are, and when it's 0% contained, that we see the destruction, we see the devastation, but I think it's important for also people to be praying for the people of California because this isn't over. They're having a hard time containing it. The water supply issue is a struggle because of failed policies. And just also for people to keep you in mind and your friends in mind, the people who you live around and work with as you have a home there. Just kind of, if you could speak into that for a minute.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, look, I'm fine. I'm in Manhattan Beach, and we are fine. What we are worried about is the fact that it's not contained. They're evacuating parts of Santa Monica, just a couple of beaches away. And, there are embers. I mean, all over our yard, our cars, it's just filled with ash. I walk around the house thinking, I'm smelling fire constantly because I am. And you're literally wondering, is it my house now? Have the embers, gotten here? And so, yesterday our neighbors were out, spraying their homes and the vegetation just to ensure, I think, a little sanity. And again, Manhattan Beach probably doesn't need to be doing that right now. But when you see 0% containment and Santa Monica being evacuated, and then you're watching the Hollywood Hills. Last night, I talked to several of my friends who were saying that they're in the evacuation zone. They had to leave. They quickly, you quickly have to leave. I'm on several text chains of people here in my hometown saying, just mentally get prepared. What would you grab? What would you take? Here are some of the things you're supposed to take. Do you have a bag? And it seems like it's overreacting. And then you find yourself saying, you know what, I should probably just put the list together. And I should be ready because, as my friends tell me from the Hollywood Hills, they were totally thinking it was not anywhere near them, and then suddenly a fire broke out, and they were having to evacuate in literally 20 minutes. And it's a very scary time. Again, it would be so much better if we were containing this, if we were getting to the point where we were starting to control it, that we had enough firefighters and money and water and help. California has helped a lot of other states and a lot of other countries in crises, and we need the help right now.
Yeah. Rick, thank you for coming on and give us that report. I think you can't be afraid to call out the problems and the issues because we knew that there were these issues and problems before this happened and knew this was potentially could happen again, and those changes weren't made. And so now has to be the time where people are held accountable, and you really have to make some policy changes to decide if this is a place that can be inhabitable and people can get insurance. ACLJ.org. We'll stay updated on this as well. We'll be right back.
This new year starting in tragedy. At least 15 dead and dozens injured after police say a man intentionally plowed his car into a crowd in the busy French Quarter of New Orleans on Bourbon Street.
Biden's weak national security apparatus led to 2 deadly terrorist attacks on New Year's Day.
We knew with the Biden administration, if you just gave it time, full term now, that you would see these returns happen.
Biden's FBI has been wrong-headedly focused on prosecuting Trump and placing spies in supposed radical traditionalist Christian churches.
We have to get the FBI and all of our other intel agencies thinking a different way, which is that it's not homegrown extremist white groups that are the number one threat. I do not want to continue to see a rise of politically connected Islamic terror again in the United States of America, which means we have got to get the president's team confirmed.
It is vitally important that the Senate quickly confirm President Trump's national security team, including our very own colleague, Tulsi Gabbard, as DNI. We're in court battling FOIA lawsuits against the DOD, DOJ, FBI, and NSA over misplaced priorities that endanger America. Our Government Affairs Office is mobilizing on Capitol Hill, but we must act quickly. Biden's deep state will be running all these agencies long after President Trump takes office, unless we get his national security team confirmed quickly. Take urgent action with us and join our demand letter to the Senate to quickly confirm Trump's national security team. The safety and security of our constitutional republic depend on it.
back to Seculo. I know we've got a lot of listeners, viewers in Southern California, as we said. We know it's a key support base for us, the American Center for Law and Justice, one of our largest areas of supporters. And if you're being impacted by it, sure, we want to hear from you on the broadcast, too, 1-800-684-3110. I don't think Rick is trying to politicize it, but people are talking about the causes, and they're all known. You could go through that whole list of causes. They needed more water put away. People voted for it, means they would pay for it, and it didn't happen. People know that clearing the brush is how they spread so quickly, and they won't clear the brush because of other environmental reasons. And you got to make choices if you're going to live in certain terrains for humans first. I mean, this is, again, when you get to policies that try to disregard, we have to worry about the frog more than the human, then the policies end up with these kind of disasters. And it's not a place where you can look and say, well, at least people in these situations, middle-class people, especially who can get hit the hardest, they've got insurance. A lot of them don't when it comes to fire. That was revoked years ago, and they likely could not afford the add-on that you'd have to pay extra to get that insurance. So the extremely wealthy, they can rebuild, and those who are in some kind of subsidized housing, that can be rebuilt. But people right in the middle, they have to rethink, are there going to be the jobs there? Is this going to be a place that is livable? And it's crazy to say that about one of the better climates, usually 90% of the year in the United States of America. So if there's any of you that want to update us on anything that's happening, 1-800-684-3110. I do want to go back to the confirmation issue, though, using Tulsi Gabbard as an example, because Fetterman, Senator Fetterman has talked about how he's been open to meet with all these nominees, Will, and yet, the criticism or the concerns people have, he's not really picking up on it in these meetings.
That's right.
The politicizing so many of these nominees because Donald Trump chose them.
And 2 years ago, when there was a midterm election, who would have ever thought that we would be this point in now 2025 saying one of the voices of reason in the Democrat Party is Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania. But we've seen it over and over again, whether it be through the election. We even he was asked about the Laken Riley Act yesterday, where that was an act if a criminal alien is here and has been picked up for petty theft or some other lower level crime, then they're detained and not released back out. And a lot of the Democrats are saying they're not going to support it in the Senate. John Fetterman said, if we can't get 7 Democrats to vote for this in the Senate to get past the 60-vote threshold, then they don't understand why we lost the election. I mean, that's the type of things that John Fetterman, as a Democrat in the Senate, is saying. But back to your point, this bite is from yesterday on Fox News. He was asked about the Tulsi Gabbard specifically as one of the nominees. Let's take a listen.
Is this Tulsi Gabbard one of the nominees that you could vote for?
Well, I met with her. In fact, I think I've met with virtually all of them. And the ones that I haven't, they're on my schedule, RFK and Governor Noem. So I'm happy to meet with all of them. And that's also part of this. I don't know why that was controversial. I mean, I got a lot of blowback just, even to meet with them. And to me, I see that as just doing my job. And I'm going to have a conversation with anyone that would like to have a conversation with me. And if someone believed everything that's been written or said about me was true, I mean, you can't possibly know me, or I think I could know her either, just based on someone read. But I want to sit down and have a conversation, and I'm really glad that I've done that. And some of these nominees I'm going to vote for already. In fact, whether it's our colleague Rubio, our Representative Stefanik, or even Sean Duffy, I expect to vote for him as well too.
So there you go. It's very interesting, Logan, because he's not afraid of the normal politics of the Democrat Party.
The political blowback.
What he's saying, first off, I mean, the fact that he's been announcing that because they've had those meetings, is that Democrats, because in those meetings it can humanize people, one-on-one, and you could talk about your differences, but you also could talk about how you agree more than different. And it's in those situations. That's the party is why they say, don't even take the meeting.
Yeah.
And I think where he's going is, well, listen, a president got elected. This is who he chose. They're willing to meet with me. If we could have the discussion on the issues I care about, if we could come to a middle ground, that's as much as I can hope for and want in someone who's obviously going to be nominated, a party very different than mine. And I'm not going to be afraid to meet with him. But the left and leadership, they don't want you to even meet because it's a lot easier to then be group think and be nasty in those committees if you've never sat across that person and had to actually have a discussion.
Well, but he's sitting there on a Fox News set with Katie Britt. Yeah. You know, like this is someone who's taking, talk about a moment where we've kind of had a flip, which has happened now multiple times. And I've said this. We've seen people grow and change over the last few years. They're taking also taking the temperature of their own state and their own areas. We saw what happened in Pennsylvania. So he's not just going to step by. I think this is a big moment. But you're right. When Arnie's mentioning names, sure, he doesn't say Tulsi, I'm 100% going to confirm. But when he says Rubio, for sure. Stefanik, for sure. Yeah. Sean Duffy, for sure. Pretty much. I mean, when you're saying that already, you're making these statements. That's pretty wild.
Well, and John Fetterman has said he's not rooting for Trump to fail, which seems like, yeah, right, that should be the right thought process as an elected official. But that's not what you see out of the Democrat Party this year. Right. You shouldn't want your president to fail, even if you don't believe in their policies, because you don't want the failure of America.
Right.
But he said that gets him in trouble. And you mentioned he's on set with Katie Britt, the Republican senator from Alabama, one of the most conservative states in the country. They're actually partnering together on the Senate version of the Laken Riley Act. So that's going to be bipartisan from him. But even he is saying he doesn't know if he can get his colleagues in his party to vote for something that is so simple of keeping people that commit crimes in detention if they're here illegally until that's adjudicated. He doesn't think he can get people in his own party to get there. So I think he's the anomaly. I think it could be good, especially to get him voting for some of these nominees when you do have some of the hawks in the party. Now, we don't know how he's going to vote for Tulsi yet. He didn't directly say it like he did Sean Duffy or Rubio, but he seems more open to it. But you need people like him, especially if there's some more hawkish Republicans that are afraid of maybe her taking away some of the governmental powers of security of intelligence gathering. But I think it's going to be important to have voices like that are honest brokers to the American people and say, you know what? President won. They swept Congress. You got to give him his picks at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the key. And Republicans really, there might be those couple like you mentioned who don't always agree with President Trump. But this is, again, their job is to look at the person and say, does this person, just have the qualification? That's it. It's not the policies. Because they're working for a president who will instruct them on the policies and make ultimate the big decisions. These are the people he's chose to carry out his policies. And when you win big and your party's not just in charge of the White House, but the House and the Senate, it shouldn't be too difficult to get your nominees through. And that doesn't mean you got to fight and push back some. But we want to make sure that, again, that these aren't put on hold where it gets hold on indefinitely, and then these important agencies don't have directors, and then we have another attack, and we still don't have a director that oversees all the intelligence agencies except one who's a holdover from the bureaucracy. Let's get these appointments in. Let's get people like Tulsi Gabbard, make sure that they've got their committee hearings scheduled so we can move to their votes for the full Senate. Sign the petition to help Tulsi and to make sure we get her committee hearing scheduled at aclj.org. Share it with your friends and family as well. Let's build some grassroots pressure with one of our ACLJ colleagues. Be historic for the ACLJ.